Hello, welcome. Good morning. It's really great to be in front of tomorrow's next generation world changers. So as someone said, I am an interface designer, but when I think about my job, it's more to technology therapist. What does that mean? I try and get technology to work with people. People don't change, but technology does, so it's ever challenging. I've done a lot of interfaces through a variety of products, and these are some of them. And what I'd like to try and show today is the value of working with engineers and designers to make information more understandable through visual aids, as it were. So interfaces are everywhere. They're a tool to let you do things. I'm trying to see where the best thing to do is for me to look that way. You have ones that are physical, that you use every day. There are also software interfaces. And probably at the end of the day, when you add it up, you've often used maybe hundreds and thousands of interfaces. And they change every month or so with new releases. So there's a lot of jobs out there, guys, for people doing this. But the thing to notice is if an interface works, you don't remember it. If it doesn't work, it's incredibly difficult and annoying, and you typically don't buy it or keep using it. So, whoa. These are not my slides. Okay. So if an interface doesn't work, people typically have to label it, as you've probably seen in software. This means it's a bad interface. Interfaces also have to work for people of all sizes and shapes, disabilities, and in all sorts of conditions. So it's very, very tricky. When I began my career, I started with something I thought that was simple, like a thermostat. This used to be designed as a dial, left-right switch going left-right, because engineers thought that was a good idea. Designers came along and said, hands go left-right in circles, and that took 8 years to change this. Pretty difficult to do design sometimes, to change the way people think. Just when I thought that was done, people said, hey, why don't you do something really challenging? And here we have hundreds and thousands of different interfaces here, with not just software, but hardware, and the space shuttle has to work, otherwise bad publicity. So you really have a big challenge here. Now, then I went to Apple, and Apple, in the days I went, we just had text and numbers, can you believe it? And a big breakthrough idea I had was to put pictures in there, trying to get movies especially in there. This was called QuickTime, and this was the original QuickTime Controller in the early mid-'80s. Now, we had to put a controller or a handle on it to tell people, you can do something to this picture, which was actually click, it plays a movie. Nowadays, you expect it to play movies, but in the old days, people did not know that you needed actually a controller to be shown. Now, it doesn't move. What I'd like to try and move towards is visualizing and using interfaces to actually understand numbers. I also think the reason I like numbers to be shown visually is that it helps me, because I'm a visual thinker, better understand them. Many of you might feel that way too. I'm not a geek, so I need an understanding. Probably this is a big visual that helped me understand how just small the Earth is relative to the sun. I've always been told it was small, but when I see that visual, I go, good Lord, it's terribly small. And the sun is very large. Now, this picture I find so quite intriguing. This is the number of tons of carbon that these objects that are in yellow use per year. Now, partly you can't really read the numbers, which is maybe a good interface, because then you peer at it longer to try and read those white numbers. But it also is a graphic that makes you think very hard to compare an airplane and a big American person. I can label them too, which I did here, or I can provide you, sorry, it moves too quickly for me. I guess I'm slow. This gives you a chart. Now, which one of these would you prefer? The table or the visual? Which one gets you the information more quickly and more usefully? So, I think there are choices for every one of us. These are different types of displaying information. Not one of them is right or wrong, but they're just choices that designers make when they do everyday activity. Here's an alternative way. I still use paper. This actually is a mural made of Post-its. Sorry, it keeps moving. I do nothing and it moves. That's fantastic interface. A good illustration of a bad interface. Does it when I don't do anything. So this is a mural using Post-its. So sometimes you can do visuals just with paper and pencil. You don't need to have computers. This is about 13,000 Post-its. Good use of Post-its, I think. Some of you in the back probably can tell what this is, or maybe you've woken up. Yeah? Okay, so those are breasts. Yes, they're designed to look like breasts for a specific reason. But if you get closer, it's a wall mural. It's 60 by 30 inches. If you get closer, again, it moved. It looks like shells to me. And as you get even closer, I will now click. No. It did it twice. Okay. There you see, they're Barbie dolls. And I'm going to do it once, quick. This is a mural made by Chris Jordan, and it shows the number of breast augmentations surgeries electively done in 2006 as a graduation gift. Now that got your attention. If I just told you the number, probably wouldn't have had such an emotional impact. Of course, the clicker got a lot of laughs as well, but interesting is that art can also educate and get your attention too. So I think that shows the power of visuals quite effectively, in my opinion. And thank you, Chris. Click. The other interesting part of numbers is there's a different number sometimes in different countries for billion. In the UK and America finally got their act together and agreed in 1974 that a billion was going to be the same number. It used to be 10 to the 9th, 10 to the 12th. Big difference. Any math teachers here would be really upset if you made that kind of massive difference in your calculations. But anyway, there's still a difference across the world. I can also tell you count in threes for, 95 years, and you'll be able to count to a billion. That's how big a billion is. So there's lots of ways of explaining numbers, and they're all very useful, I think, because sometimes we just don't know how big a billion is. This really freaks me out. That's a million on the top left, a billion on the right, and then a trillion in the middle. That's a palette, which is 40 by 48. So when people on the radio sometimes say, a billion, trillion, you often hear people, it's just one letter. Well, it's a big difference, right? Very important and very big difference. When we work with scientists doing visual representations, we have to take the numbers, clean them up, get them all organized so they're systematically understandable. Then we have to take them and make representational choices of how we show that data. That's the work that designers do. And I'll show you some of how we went about doing this with some illustrations. We're doing that again. So one of the things we did was put what I call information in the face of people. So I put them up in wall displays so they don't have a choice but to see them. And then I try and have events so that they look at them all around them. It's a very effective way of people at beginning to see what's going on in the world. And they talk about it. This one here, it's doing 3 now. It's really exciting. Okay. This is actually an animation that's not animating. So that's exciting. I can try and mime it, I suppose. No animation. Okay. Try again. Right, here it is. So now you get 3 and 1 click. This is, if you like, a tool for blogging. This is the text that's written out. There are 20 billion blog pages per month written. I bet not many of you are actually going to read them, because you wouldn't be doing anything but reading all day long for the rest of your life and not get very far in any homework assignment. So this is like a summary of the blogging information, and it's a tool that would help you maybe sift through all the text on the left-hand side. This is all the 911 calls coming into Los Angeles, and what you see here is many things that are useful for planning how traffic would be redirected in your cars. Now this is what you have, but now also this needs to be used by the police and ambulance services. This is about 1,500 calls going into Los Angeles daily for emergencies, just in one area. Here we've done something with a multi-touch table. People are touching all at the same time, and what they get on the surface is a live feed of Flickr photos, and these are photos when you touch the location, you get a live display of what's going on. This is about a million photos that were being uploaded live at the time that people touched on the table. Now there's about 50 million being done daily. So the rapid increase, again, you need to find alternate ways of explaining this and showing this data to people. This is the mail traffic for Yahoo. Yahoo was the biggest mail provider at this point in history. And what you see is something that the people at Yahoo said they didn't know, which was the massive difference in email traffic between the East and the West Coast. This is about 550 mail messages per hour. I know you don't know that, but you'll see that the East and West Coasts are hugely different. They're about double the number from the East to the West Coast. This was useful also for spam, which I'm not allowed to show you because people don't want to know that there's ever spam, but about at least 50% of their messages are spam nowadays. So it's a huge amount, and you need to show this aggregate information so that people can choose how to filter this out. So you can see that difference there, huge between the East and West Coast. And this was live at the time that mail messages were going around. This is a piece that we showed for what we call the New York Talk Exchange, which is all of the internet protocol traffic, voice, and data going across from New York around the world. And it was live, the first ever live transmission. This is about 3 petabytes of data that was going in and out of New York. Why would you want this? You want it to see where am I going to design and put my information for news towers, etc. in the future. So it's a zoomable information in 3D, so you can go down directly to New York and see where it's all going across the world. People don't know where phone calls go or what areas they go to the most. So this was a very useful tool for AT&T to diagnose where they might want to put more of their cell towers. This was an alternate display we used to say within the districts, you can actually see, I think you have to be gentle and slow with it. So that's why I'm coaxing it, but it's not working. But if you see the display there on the right, within a subdivision, you get a little DNA strip that shows you within a borough where those phone calls are going in the countries, different directions. This is useful for people who say, well, do I need to make more communications to China that will help me with my voice protocol tasks into a different country? So people don't know where the traffic goes, and this is a useful tool for those diagnostic telecommunications people. Last project I want to bring up is a project with the Internet Archive. This is a church in San Francisco, and inside it is the Internet Archive, processing and scanning all the out-of-print books in the world. They are now at 13 bytes of data, I think. They have 400 billion records now, And these are people just scanning all day long out-of-print books. So what I did for them a few years ago was make a bookscape tool so that people could read all of the images within the books that were out of print. And the reason that this is a useful tool is once they've scanned the books, they don't know what images are inside the books. And so this happens to be alphabetically organized, but you could do it by date or author or age. Now think about it in terms of your own life. I bet many of you have never erased a photograph in your life, except if it's embarrassing, all right? But there's 93 million selfies taken now. I bet nobody actually, most of you don't look at them after they've taken them. But the other thing is that people are not actually erasing things. So that they reckon now that in this year, there'll be 1 trillion photos. Remember that little palette photo I showed you? 1 trillion photos taken in the whole year, this 2016. So we've got more visual information than we know what to do with, and what we need are tools to be able to search. Because in 20 years, when you're as old as I am, yes, I'm only 40, you're going to have to try and find those people, your classmates, and say, wow, where was that guy I liked? It would be nice to see what he looked like when he was young. And then, oh, these look like old books? Yeah, but you're going to want to try and find your friends too. And they won't look like old books, but they're going to be there in some archive that you kept, but you don't know how to search. So these are tools that you need to think about designing as you get into your careers. This is one of my favorite things that a colleague of mine I hired as an intern, Erin Coburn, did. It is FAA data that shows all of the planes coming in and out of America, only made by the planes, not by America, no map, and it's just data. It's public data. It's beautiful too. And it tells you that there's about 7,000 planes flying in and out. And I think it's just something that really attracted me to looking at data visualization as an art form as well as a science. Aaron has gone on to do amazing things in his career, both at Google and also elsewhere with films. So the opportunity exists for you here to understand data, just because we all need to understand numbers, especially in civics and future statistical situations, and also to work together with design and science to help look at things in different visual ways, not just bunches of numbers where people spit out trillion, million, billion, but they don't know what they're saying. And we now have a huge amount of data that's all being stored by companies about you, and you don't even know where it's being stored or what it's being used for. And that data needs to be visible and shown and used in productive ways. It's content that will be useful for you, that will help you find the things you might want, not now, but in 5 or 10 years. So I think it also is a new narrative, a narrative being an opportunity to tell stories about your everyday lives in the future. And it's something that you can take an expressive role in creating. Sorry. I'm going to try really hard to get this right at the end. No? Okay. So I think what I've shown you today is not just a picture is worth 1,000 words, but something you've probably done is you've used YouTube. And I believe most people have done something like how-to on YouTube. I know my son learned how to shave using YouTube. And we actually went through the steps together. I'm a single mother, so I don't shave my face. We had the balloon, and we went through how to shave the balloon, and then he used his face. So he did a how-to YouTube, and that's a visualization. And how much are those YouTube videos worth in the same way as how much are those visualizations worth in explaining some things that you might want to understand about the world that I just showed you? So finally, there's a black screen. There's a future out there. You're all going to be part of it. And words of advice from an old person like me, don't be worried about failing, because whatever you do, you'll learn from failure. I failed more times than I succeeded. And that's a message to say there's no right or wrong way. And don't give up, because you'll come back and do a better job next time. But you must learn to have fun when you're doing it, because everything I've done in my life I found is just utterly joyful, and that's my name. So thank you very much for listening.